All right. We rolling? We good? This is a premiere episode of Adapt and Achieve live stream. So before we start, I'm going to give a huge shout out to Blake Wright at 3 of 7 Project because he's helped us troubleshoot so much stuff, and we got a Black Magic ATM Mini Pro. And so it's a switcher, so you can switch back and forth between camera angles. So we have one camera on me, we have one camera on Kevin, and we have Sergio behind the computer, switching camera angles as needed. And him and I mess with it, but we've been messing with this thing for
A
ever,
long time.
a long time. And we actually, this all stemmed from whenever we were on the 3 of 7 Project podcast with Blake Wright and Chad Wright. And we had kind of told them, like, this is something that we want to do eventually is live stream our podcasts. We just don't really know how to go about it. So basically, Blake was like, here's the stuff you need. Here's what we have. And, we kind of worked within our budget and within our means of how we want to stream, what do we want it to look like, and went from there. So we got this about a month ago,
Yep.
and we've just been messing with the audio. We couldn't quite figure it out. Finally, we're like, Blake, like, hey, what's up? Like, what can we do to fix this? And then all within like 3 days, we got it all figured out.
Also, shout out to Kyle Balliot for
Mhm.
our fancy podcast table.
And our table here that you can kind of see, Sergio's messing with the cameras here.
And we got to get Sergio a mic too one of these days.
Yeah. So this is our first go.
Sergio's the tech guy, and we need you to be able to be able to talk a little bit.
Yeah,
So we need
so-
to get you a mic, Sergio.
That's the plan going forward, is to get Sergio a mic, and I got the stream pulled up here on my phone so I can see what's going on. But we're gonna get Sergio a mic so that way he can check out what's
Switch
going
me
on.
over, Sergio. I want to see what I look like.
This is our first go at it here, and so yeah, that's our plan. And
Nice.
going forward is get Sergio a mic and eventually get a third camera. That way we have something set up so that we can see both of us at the same time, or however many guests we have on. Get multiple mics, get this thing rolling. So, but the goal for today is we've been antsy all day to like get this thing going. Ever since we figured out we got it, me and Sergio have been like hammering out the setup of this, and Kevin had to run some errands for the business. But I'm not gonna give any context, and I think we'll get into that probably 2 to 3 podcasts from now. We have some really exciting and really cool changes going on with MoveWell. Which, just to give some context, if you don't know, Adapt and Achieve, this whole podcast is presented by MoveWell. So MoveWell is the company that it's produced out of from MoveWell. We're a corporate wellness company. So yeah, we love to do way more things than just provide services to our clients, way more. And part of that is just building a community. We have the Hot Rod Ultra, which is a huge 24-hour ultra marathon. We do the podcast. We are really intentional with social media and all those things. So today we're going to kind of just make this the premiere stream. And earlier I was talking to Kevin. I was like, all right, so do you have any ideas like for the podcast topic for like what's going on today? And he said, death to new life. I was like, okay, well, do you want to take the lead on that or anything? And he was like, no, you're the host. So I'm going to let Kevin open it up because I know he's got some type of brain power behind that statement. And then I know we'll break open into a wide open conversation after that. So kind of give what made you think of that and what direction you're going to go with that today.
So the direction of death to new life is today's Holy Thursday. So if you're a Christian, it's a big couple of days coming up with Easter coming up. And today is the day that 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ had the Last Supper, was betrayed by Judas, and was taken into custody. And everything was put into motion for him to be crucified on Calvary and ultimately rise 3 days later with new life. And so I think it's a timely topic. Even if you're Christian or not. And the purpose of this podcast is not in any way to tell you that you need to be Christian, you need to change your life. But I think we can relate that topic to a lot of things in our life. And, so there's an obvious Christian context of what death to new life means. I mean, Jesus had to die for our sins, or died for our sins, and then was resurrected 3 days later. He redeemed us 3 days later on Easter. And that's the whole story of Christianity. But I want to also take it a step further today and just not focusing just on that, but what areas of our lives individually, do we need to die? Where do we need to die? And with death, or for new life and for resurrection in the context of Christianity, it requires death. You have to die. Like Lazarus, he died and then he was risen again as a new person. And we talk a lot about growth. I mean, adapt and achieve. The title of this podcast is, adapting to unforeseen circumstances, overcoming obstacles, overcoming difficulties, and achieving great things. So I think this title of this podcast is essentially death to new life in a sense, because that's what our wellness journey, that's what our lives are about, is shedding ourselves of things that are holding us back and being able to resurrect as a new person. So that's the context for today. That's what I meant by death to new life. And I think that'll take us in a bunch of different directions. But I want the focus to be on, and I was at church last week, and maybe it was 2 weeks ago actually. But I had a conversation. I do like a spiritual directorship thing once a month with the priest at my church, and the topic he was talking about the Sunday previously was, in order to achieve new life, to resurrect, you've got to die first. And that really struck me. It really struck me. And the scripture that he was focusing on was from John. I think it's John 12, 20, 22, somewhere around there. But it's the verse of, if a grain of wheat just remains, I'm going to butcher this, but basically the grain of wheat has to die and fall to the ground to actually become what it's supposed to be resurrected anew. And he tied a whole talk on that, and it really struck me. It got me thinking. And my wife, at the same time, actually, it struck her, and I didn't realize she was taking pictures of it in her phone too. That verse, and so I've been hyper focused on that individually. I think because I've been going through a lot of changes personally, and the importance of that. And so I just want to do a podcast on it.
Yeah,
but I think for us to become new people, to grow, like I said, it requires death, but death is really, really hard and painful. Growth sounds exciting, but growth requires you to die in other areas.
Yeah.
And man, I think we just I think we leave out when we talk about the whole growth thing and becoming this new version of yourself and all the stuff that we talk about on or that you see on social media and everything. Everybody leaves out the difficult part of the death part and how painful and hard that is. And for us to be transformed, we've got to make the hard choice and and go through those painful struggles. And that could be, if we're trying to make physical changes, it could be if we're trying to make financial changes, whatever it is, at some point you're required to just go all in and be willing to suffer some pain and some uncomfortable things. And there's so much power and freedom in that too, in a sense. So jump in. That's what I wanted to kind of talk about.
Yeah, and as you're talking through that, I immediately thought of this graphic or this meme that I saw on Instagram last night, actually. And it was like a little cartoon drawing you would see in like a newspaper article. And it was a black and white cartoon, and it was two lines. And there was a person set up at a table here, like sitting like this. And it was a guy sitting at a table, and there's a table right here, and he's sitting, and they both have signs in front. And the guy on the left sign says, "Jump in this line if you want to be successful." And it had 20, 30, 40 people. And the other guy said, "Jump in this line if you want to do the things it takes to be successful." And there was nobody. And there was nobody in the line. And like, as you were talking through that, I was like, that is literally exactly what that is. Death to new life is, if you want a new life, this is obviously a lot bigger speaking, death to new life, but just from like day to day, like developing new habits or doing something you've never done before, like in order to get there, some things have to die. Like some habits in your life have to die. And that doesn't just happen by snapping your fingers. It happens by taking actions and taking initiative to do those things. If you want to lose weight, well, you have to develop new habits. You're not just like, all right, I'm ready to lose weight, and then boom, the weight's gone. So like that picture was a perfect description of exactly what it means to like death to new life,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what that means, because a lot of people say like, all right, I'm ready to be successful, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
But in that statement, you have to realize that, okay, I'm ready to be successful, let's do it. Well, I have to do all of these things in order to be successful. It's a lot of sacrifice. And I think that in multiple stages of your life, you're going to experience that. It all just depends on that season of life you're in, whether it's being a parent, whether it's getting married, whether it's wanting to lose weight, whether it's wanting to sign up for your first event or start a business, whatever it is. And I think that everybody in this room has probably been through an experience of death to new life, and of exactly what that looks like, of exactly
Mm-hmm.
what that feels like. And so I think it's important that we can give some like real life examples of that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in this room has some pretty solid examples. So I think it's important to talk about it, but also from our perspectives, because we have those perspectives, like what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I've talked about this a million times on the podcast, so people may have heard this before. I talk about it a lot because it's impacted me significantly. I was not present with my children. I have 4 children now. I just had my second child, maybe third. I can't remember, but I was sitting there holding my daughter in her rocker, and it was just a beautiful moment. And the only thing I could think about in that moment was the stupid crap I was seeing on social media. It was during kind of like an election cycle.
Mm.
And, you're getting frustrated about what people say and things like that. Everybody's experienced that and felt those things. And I'm sitting there getting all riled up about stuff that I have no control over at all. And then I'm just like hooked into this phone. And for years I was like, and some people can control it. I can't. Like, I can't control it. And for years I would be like, oh, I didn't have a smartphone for a long time. And then once I got it, I was hooked, just like, a lot of people. And then I found myself obsessing over checking my email every second or whatever. I mean, just using it way too much. And one day I was just like, you know what? If I'm gonna make a change and want to be more present and all these things, I want to pray more and all these things, I got to stop making excuses that I don't have enough time in my day, or I'm too busy because I'm, got a busy job, or I've got, a lot of kids, or whatever my excuse was. I've got to stop making that excuse and actually do something about it, because I actually had time and I knew I had time. I just didn't want to acknowledge that. I didn't want to accept that, because I would rather be spending time on my phone. So I decided to take the internet off my phone for 30 days. Had my wife set a password to where I had just a few apps available, podcasts, that I don't really waste a lot of time with podcasts. And so I kept a few things like podcasts, maps, a couple like payment kind of things, our MoveWell app. But the rest I had her block, and no internet browser, no social media stuff, obviously. Got off all of that. Email came later, actually, not until 3 months ago, actually. Because I justified that I needed it for work. But it was the most painful thing, and then one of the most painful parts of all of it was getting rid of Strava, which is so stupid. It's a endurance app where it tracks your endurance, and
It's basically like Facebook or like Instagram for people who work out, like running, biking, swimming, all that.
And it scores you and rates you. And I
you can see what everybody
I had years
does.
of data on there. And when I deleted it, I had to like lose all my data. And like, it's something like in my inner being like hurt when I did that, because I realized I had like identity tied to those stupid things on there, of like me having a PR or King of the Mountain on some running route. So stupid, but it like hurt. It was painful. And it was like I was like grieved. And when I decided I wanted to try to do this, I thought about it for days and days and days, and I didn't want to do it because I was like grieving getting rid of this phone, because I realized it had become something that was like an attachment to me, which is exactly why I needed to get rid of it. And it was the most like painful, hard thing to do. And then I finally did it. I did it. It's like in November or something. I was going to do it for 30 days. That was like 2.5 years ago. I'm still doing it, because after like 5 days, man, I had time to pray. I had time to interact with my children, with my wife, to be more present with friends. I was actually calling people and texting them. So still using my phone to do that, but it was much more personal, instead of just seeing something they did on Facebook and assuming or feeling like I knew what was going on with their life. I actually had to have meaningful interaction. And I was more productive at work, all this stuff, because I made that decision. And it's not hard. Once I did it, it wasn't even hard, and I don't miss it. And now I'm so afraid to go back. I don't even want to know what the password is on my phone because I'm so afraid that I will just fall right back into it because I'm not strong enough. I'm too weak to have that. I can't control myself with it, and again, painful. I kind of had to go through that death experience of grieving, losing. And it sounds silly to say it, but it felt like it was hard. It was painful. And then all of a sudden I had this resurrection of like, oh my gosh, I'm a new person. I feel less stressed. I feel like I have more time. I feel like I'm not as busy because you think you're busy with those things, but it's all artificial. Your brain feels like you're doing something, but you're not doing anything,
right.
And so all of a sudden I had so much more freedom. That's a small example of that. But also, I mean, another more practical example is when my wife and I went down to one income, when we had our first daughter. My wife was a teacher. She made more money than me as a teacher. We went down to one income after we had our daughter, and I was scared to death, man. I was scared to death. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. Didn't think we were going to be able to pay our bills. But you know what happened was we had to start budgeting. I had to stay on top of stuff. And then again, I was able to resurrect into a new version of myself. And ultimately that's what got me to this point, because I realized I had to start working harder at my job. And if I was going to continue to support my family on one income, I had to start growing in my career to be able to do that. Because I was floundering before that, So.
Yeah. And I think kind of going back to, you said like a small example, going off the social media thing, something for me that, I mean, here at MoveWell, like I do marketing and creative stuff. So a lot of that is social media, like, the YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook, and then, helping with things in the MoveWell app. But having those things on my phone is crucial to my job.
Yeah.
But I noticed that, a job I had before this was a very corporate role. And it was very much like 8 to 4:30 or 9 to 5, whatever. You come in, you wear this, you do this, you sit behind your desk, you get 1 hour for a break throughout the day for your lunch. You go home, that's it. Like, that's just not my lifestyle. And as I was learning that, I was really being intentional with social media in my spare time outside of work. And even, sometimes on my lunch break, I would just scroll, come up with like ideas for social media for my personal stuff. And then whenever I finally switched to this job here at MoveWell, I realized that it wasn't a normal type of job setup. One, like it's a lot more, like we're doing a lot more things here that is impactful and that I personally enjoy. So I had, like, during work, I had a lot more creative freedom that I had aspired to have in other jobs. And so with that, I'm enjoying what I'm doing here at work. And then I'm getting notifications from my personal social media and just like news that doesn't matter to me, that should not matter, of like, like an example would be like reality TV, like Twitter notification or something, or, and I'm a big Survivor fan. And so I'm getting like a Survivor notification on my phone. So then I open Twitter because I got the notification. Next thing I know, it's 15 minutes later. And I'm like, what I just wasted 15 minutes. Same thing with Instagram. And I'm opening it and I'm scrolling. I'm like, that was a waste of 10 to 15 minutes. So finally I turned off all social media notifications on my phone. So the only thing I get is obviously phone calls, text messages. And then I get a screen time report each week too. So I see my screen time average in it. I'm not joking, man. It literally went down and still has stayed this way. And still some weeks just trickles down lower and lower. Over 2 hours of average daily screen time went down after I turned notifications off. And I'll give some, and it's an embarrassing example, but at one point my screen time was like 7.5 hours a day. And now it's like on average, like probably 4.5 hours a day. Like it's still a lot, but part of my job, with social and other things. But yeah, it was like,
think about how much time you got back.
Yeah,
from that,
100.
right?
I mean, that's almost 3 hours that you're getting back, and it was extremely impactful.
What did I hold up the other day at our team retreat? I printed out a big thing on paper.
All caps said growth.
It said growth, right? And what did I talk about with that?
Growth.
but I was like, growth is exciting. But it's really, really hard, and it's really, really hard. And it's so essential and it's so crucial. But I've also noticed, and I was thinking about this morning, when you're in a growth phase and you're going through hard things or you're dying to yourself, one, you're really tempted to go back the other way, but you're also tempted by new temptations. Like you all of a sudden you want to, you may, like, for me, at least, like, I get tempted by sin. I get tempted by, like, everything you're doing is stupid. This is dumb. It's a waste of time. Everybody's going to think you're stupid. Like, I just start getting attacked, man. Like, my mind just starts going crazy, because the last thing, I mean, I'm a Christian, so I'm just gonna say this. The last thing I believe that the devil wants you to do is live the life that you're supposed to live, and to when you're going through that growth phase, or you're dying to an area of your life that is not good, that is sinful, or that it plays a part in making you not as good of a person. You are going to get attacked from all angles. And the weak person is going to believe those, and they're going to just go back the other way because they're scared. They're going to believe that. For me, that's when I get attacked the hardest, was when I'm in it. And so I want to encourage you. Like, if you're in a growth phase and you're feeling that stuff and you're discouraged and you're attacked, and I'm saying this because I'm almost talking to myself right now, because I'm in this phase in my life right now. That's exactly where you need to be. Like, if you don't have any concerns or any doubts or any, like, you're probably not really growing, or you're not dying to something in your life, because you don't want to let go of this stuff, man. You don't want to let go of it. And because it gives you comfort, it gives you peace, it gives you a sense of control. It's like this crutch that you had to lean on, and all of a sudden you're knocking those crutches out away from you.
Yeah.
Or it's like you had a 3-legged stool that you've been sitting on forever, and all of a sudden you just broke one of those legs out, and you're falling, and you're scared, and you don't know what to do. You're insecure. You're doubting every step of it. That's when you're exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
If you're just sitting on that 3-legged stool and you're comfortable forever, doing exactly the same thing over and over again, well, man, it's a pretty stinking boring life. And you may be okay. You may be okay, but I don't think you're going to thrive. And I don't think you're going to do big things. And I think we've got one shot at life. I know we have one shot at life, right? We definitely have one shot at life. And we've got to go all in. And it requires us to not be stupid, not take just dumb risk or whatever. Be calculated, be smart. But I think all of us know deep down inside what you're called to do. And if you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about, because you can feel it. It's alive. It's in your soul. It's deep down in your gut. You may have not told one person this, but you know it's there. You know it's there, and you're trying to push it away. And you push it away by distracting yourself on social media. You push it away by taking comfort in alcohol, or taking comfort in food, or binge watching Netflix, or whatever it is. These are all distractions. These are all things to keep you from noticing that thing that's inside of you that is scary, that it's hard, that you're called to do. You're pushing that stuff aside and you're distracting yourself. And when you start cutting that out, you start cutting that sin out of your life, or start cutting that distraction, all of a sudden it makes that other thing start being more real, and it's scary, and you're going to doubt it. We use the term burn the boats a lot of times here. I literally was just talking to Wade that works with us, and he just said that we're burning the boats. And I can't remember which explorer it was, but he landed on the coast of somewhere in Central America, and he didn't want to have a distraction. He didn't want to have that extra thing, that plan B, essentially, that he could fall back on. So he got all the boats up on the shore, and he lit every single one of them on fire. And they had no way they couldn't go back to Europe. They were all in on what their mission was, and there was no plan B whatsoever. And when you die to yourself, you die to these things that are plan Bs, essentially, or distractions, then you're all in. And then you're living the life you were created to live. And that's when it gets scary. But that's when you start doing big things, you know?
And I think a lot of times people will think, whenever they hear basically what you just said, they think like, okay, what's the one big thing that I want to do? I think you have to realize that it's a lot of small things that lead up to that, right?
Yes.
You know, and so part of that is like what Kevin said, like maybe it's giving up alcohol, maybe it's like cutting out TV time a little bit. Like it's all of these things. Like, what can you do to help you get to that big goal in the long run? And so realizing that it's kind of like the table example I gave earlier. Like there's two tables. One is like, if you're ready to be successful, get in this line. If you're ready to do what it takes to be successful, get in this line. And so I think a lot of it takes, honestly, just a lot of self-awareness. Like, you're very self-aware that if you have the access to the internet on your phone, or the social channels or social apps on your phone, like you're gonna surrender to to whatever you're feeling, and you're just
Mhm.
gonna indulge in it, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of it is self-awareness. Like for me, giving up alcohol last year in 2023 and then just finishing 75 hard they were both no alcohol, so all of last year and then through 75 hard. And I found myself a lot of times during 75 hard really overanalyzing the things that I was doing with nutrition mainly,
Mm.
and being like, oh, was I enough of a deficit today? Did I have enough protein today? Did I have too much fat, too many carbs, blah, blah, blah. Well, then one thing I think that really helps is reflection, and hindsight is always 2020. But I realized once that challenge was over, like, man, I beat myself up. So like I was doing so much better in those moments than I was before. And I see why when it gets hard and when it gets overwhelming, I've been in those moments. It's so easy to be like, okay, this is just too much.
Yeah.
Let's just brush it all off the table and go back to what we were doing. So you have to realize that, like you said, Kevin, like in those moments that when it's feeling challenging, when it's feeling really overwhelming, when it's feeling scary, and you're questioning yourself, like your own mind, those are the moments that you have to get through in order to
Mhm.
get one step closer to that success or that goal that you have, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Like I look back to those days that I was questioning my nutrition so hard, and I was like, for 75 days, I was consistent, like so consistent with my diet. And that's why I lost 30 pounds. And that's
Mhm.
why my body composition improved. That's why I felt better mentally, because I was having no alcohol, because I was making better choices with my food. But in those moments, you're so caught up in it, and like we've talked about, like I agree. Like I think Satan wants us to not live our lives we're meant to live. And so
Mhm.
if you're a Christian, like you might think this is Satan tempting me or doubting myself, and it's real. Like
Yeah.
whatever everybody feels is all the same, and it's
Yeah.
really real. So I think having those moments of doubt, uh, the difference is, are you going to be the person at the table that says I'm ready to be successful? Or are you going to be the person at the table that says I'm ready to do what it takes to be successful? And part of doing what it takes to be successful is going through the lows, dealing with it,
Mhm.
and coming on the other side, and almost being self-aware enough. Like I'm in this seat right now talking about it, because I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine if I would have given up right then, how mad would I have been at
Yeah.
myself? That's another thing too that you always have to think about, is like, how mad are you going to be at yourself? If you can have enough self-awareness and reflection in the moment to be like, okay, if I quit right now, or if I give into this temptation right now, or if I indulge right now, if I've been sober, if you're sober and you haven't drank in 4 years and you decide to drink, how mad am I going to be at myself tomorrow?
Mhm.
And realizing that this step of uncomfort, or this moment of uncomfort, and having to fight yourself mentally and internally, is going to be a lot more worth it
Mhm.
if you come out on the other side doing the thing that tomorrow you would have wished you would have done.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of it, and wanting to be successful, is getting through
What I
those.
think the journey is as human beings is we've got to be able to um control temptation is not the right word I'm looking for. We got to be able to master all these things that we feel that we can't control. So we got to be able to and right now I'm really trying to master anxiety because I'm not winning at that. I write it in every morning. I write down some stuff, and today that was what I wrote about. It's like, gosh, man, God, give me strength for this stuff, because I'm worrying so much about stuff that I can't even control. Like, give me strength for that, But that's what it ultimately is, just learning to control these things that are they're just kind of out of your control. Yeah, I guess that doesn't make sense. But for me, like, anxiety type stuff of like things like that can consume me to where I feel
Yeah.
sick and I feel like I'm going to throw up or whatever it is. Like, no, man, I'm going to master that. I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm not going to doubt this or that. Like that's what I'm really working hard on right now, and it's not easy, And I've got to die to myself in that area, because when it ultimately comes down to is me trying to make myself the center of the universe, or myself my own God, and be in control of everything. And what I have to learn to do is accept that I can't control everything. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so I've got right now in this moment, I'm working really hard in my life to be able to master that and to be able to let go of control, control the things that I need to control. You have responsibilities. I'm not saying that you just kind of go through life and don't care, but you do what you got to do. And then if you give a good effort, you do all the things you need to do, at some point you just got to let go and not worry about the consequences or whatever. And if you feel that you're following that thing that God's calling to you, or that thing in your gut or whatever it is, you have to trust in that at some point. And that's what I'm really working hard on,
And I think from my personal experience, I'm sure a lot of young people or people, in their 20s and 30s can relate to this, that a lot of times I think first off, in your mid 20s is around the time you start realizing maybe you have a different purpose or you're not
Mhm.
doing the things that you want to do in your life. I know I've been through that. I've had thoughts of that. I still do, of like, okay, I feel like I'm feeling really cold to do this, or am I really enjoying this thing, this aspect of my life as much as I have? And I think there's a lot of social pressure around a lot of things too. And
Yeah.
one thing that I actually was listening to on 307 podcast was they had a conversation about, you're not the person you are today is not who you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
If I'm 27, if I'm, 10 years ago when I was in high school, I'm not even close to the same person I was then. And therefore means the people that I related with then, hung out with then, I probably wouldn't even associate with now if we were walking on the street together and
Yeah.
sparked a conversation. We wouldn't have the same interest.
Right.
And so I think when you get to a certain age too, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, one thing actually, without sugarcoating it, like, you have to, lack of better terms, cut people off. You have to rid relationships. But I think there's a way to go about it. Like, from my experience, I haven't just been like, okay, we don't have the same interest, that's it. The way I've gone about it is, you still are around these people, you hang around the people that you have been friends with maybe 5-10 years ago, you catch back up. But the key is to just be yourself around that person and speak genuinely about the things you enjoy if you're a Christian. And it's, for me, that's one thing in the last 6-7 months I've like had a really strong calling to God and learning more about Jesus, and I've like really dove into my faith more, and that was a very uncomfortable thing for me.
Yeah.
So an example for me would be when I'm, around people that I were friends with 8-9 years ago, and we're just like cussing nonstop, which is something I'm still working on, but we're like cussing nonstop and like just like talking about things that's not something that I would want to do now, is staying true to the person I want to be now in
Yeah.
those moments when we rekindle that conversation or that relationship or just being around each other again. Because from my experience, like, those people and you have just drifted apart
Yeah.
whenever you're around each other and you just remain who you are.
Yep.
And so being able, and that's part of death to new life, is like,
Yep.
when you're around people and you feel that social pressure again of maybe you don't want to drink anymore, or maybe you were smoking cigarettes, you don't want to smoke anymore, or you're like, they're talking about things that are, that you really struggle with in the past that you're trying to get past. Like, just be open and be honest, and like, be strong in your character and your values in those moments. And if it takes you like leaving, and maybe you're at like a reunion or something, it takes you leaving early, like, so be it.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, that is what I struggle with the most, is the social pressure. And I'm open about that. Like, whenever I wasn't drinking last year, I was like immediately planning, like, okay, I'm not going to go to this
Yeah.
or this. I'm not going to go out to a restaurant, blah, blah, this on the weekends. It's like, if you truly want to change who you are, from my perspective and my experiences, like, if you want to be able to change who you are, or rid these things and die to these things of your areas of your life that you want to get rid of, at some point you're gonna have to get in that situation.
Yep.
And that's just part of it. You can't just avoid it forever, because if you've avoided it for 5 or 6 years and you get back in that situation, the
Mhm.
temptation is going to be there.
Yeah.
The 5 to 6 years later, and it's likely going to be stronger than what it was
Yeah.
when you were 6-7 months in.
Yeah.
If
you want to change something, if you want to do something, just do it. I know a person that wants to train for something, so he's bought all the equipment, all the stuff, has all the programs, all the things, and he hasn't started. You don't need all that crap. Just get out the door and start moving, right? Start walking. If you want to be a musician, go buy an instrument and start trying to play it. Like, just do it. And I think we die to that insecurity and that stuff. Like, you're not cool. Like, nobody think, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not, like, just because, if anything, people think you're cooler if you're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't want to try stuff because, I don't want people to think I'm stupid. Well, you probably are actually cooler because you're trying. Like, people respect that. People want that. You're not so cool that you can't try something. And I say this because I'm pointing it all back at myself. I couldn't dance for years because I thought everybody was watching me. I wasn't that cool. Nobody was paying attention to me. They didn't care that I couldn't dance. Just get out there and dance. Like, it doesn't matter. We have so much insecurity and self-limiting things in our brain. And my advice is just start doing it. And if you're not sure what to do, I would encourage you to shock your system.
Mm-hmm.
Take a cold shower, go, run up a mountain, just do something that takes 2 minutes. Just shock yourself. And I promise you, it'll be terrible in the moment. And when you get done, you're like, man, I feel pretty good about myself. And you'll get addicted to that feeling. you'll get addicted, and then the next day you'll do something else and just keep doing it. And all of a sudden, you're just growing and growing. You're dying in other areas. You're dying to comfort. You're dying to insecurity. And you didn't even realize that you started, you know? So just do something. So that's my advice to you. If you're listening to this, just get started doing something. And we always say 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. That's it. And like you were talking about, small incremental changes. You don't have to do the big thing all at once. Just do little things. And maybe those little things point to the big thing. And maybe you don't even know what the big thing is yet. But when you start doing the little things, all of a sudden that path starts getting clear and you start unlocking things, and like it all starts making sense, and it builds to this thing that you never imagined that you could do. But the whole point is dying to yourself, die to the insecurity, die to the comfort. We are way too comfortable in our society today. Die to that. Get uncomfortable. That's when we start making progress. That's when you got to get going.
Yep. This is not a Nike sponsored podcast.
Just do it, baby.
Just do it. We will take sponsors. Sergio, you can contact Sergio at Adaptive. No. But yeah, and going back to like the physical aspect of it, I think that like we like to just shoot it straight and like keep it real, and that's part of it. But if you want to actually shock your system and like you don't know what you want to do, go outside. Like just go outside and run in the rain, run up a mountain, like Kevin said. Like just go and do something that if you were to tell somebody, if somebody comes up to you and like, what did you just get done doing? I just ran 30 minutes in the rain. They're like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. And you know what? Like Kevin said, it sucks in the moment, but like those moments after doing something physically challenging or like physically crazy in some people's eyes, like we've told stories of like us going out on the trails and like Kevin's rubbed mud all over his face out in the middle of a run. And like stuff like that is when you like, those are the moments you don't forget. Sergio and Kevin
so
have like
swam in a river.
Yeah, swam in a river on a drive back
to swim from one river to another river.
Yeah, we've like cold plunged in water, and yeah, you know, it's a totally different feeling to step out of your comfort zone physically than it is anything else.
Yeah.
And doing something that just absolutely terrifies you, and you have no clue what it's going to look like. That is going to give you more confidence. It's going to give you more clarity and you won't realize that or understand that until after you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna give you more drive or more. It's gonna make you wonder more. Like when you do something that's challenging, or you do something that's hard, or that's something that's just uncomfortable, and you finish it, the next day it's gonna be in your mind a little bit, and then again the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, and eventually you're gonna go back out and you're going to do it again. And where that leads, like you have no clue. Like for me, it was when I did the relay across America. I ran 141 miles over the course of 5 days. I remember when I first signed up, I was like, I am terrified.
Yeah.
And I have no clue what it's going to look like. I don't know how my mind's going to be, how my body's going to feel. And I remember the first couple of days, you know, day 1 was okay. Day 2 and 3 were the lowest, still to this day, arguably some of the lowest mental moments I've ever felt in my life, because you feel alone. You start looking ahead so much to like, oh my gosh, I have 80 or 90 more miles until I'm done with this whole thing. But then after I finished and my body is aching and I'm hurting, 2-3 days later, I'm like, I'm craving that feeling again.
Yeah.
And then from there, I signed up for an ultra. I did a 50-mile trail race, 100-mile trail race. I've done all types of races since then. And that has led me to do other things in my life too.
Mm-hmm.
And so forcing yourself to do something that's physically uncomfortable or that scares you, that is outdoors, that's physical, is in my opinion like completely unmatched.
Yeah.
Completely unmatched.
I agree.
Yeah.
I always say this: put yourself in tough situations and force yourself to succeed. Because we've got to practice. We got to practice those hard things, because at some point we're going to have a hard thing that we don't want. It could be somebody dying. It could be whatever it is. It could be you going through an illness or something physical. And if we have those almost practice runs, it's going to make us stronger in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, if we artificially kind of put ourselves in those hard situations and overcame those and won, we can kind of draw on that for strength and courage, because we know we can get through something hard. And so I think we always are rehearsing. We're always preparing for that moment when it actually gets hard for real, and we didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
You know, but if we never have that, we never have that resilience built up, we've never practiced that resilience, it will consume us. It'll kill us. It'll break us. It'll send us into despair, or literally might kill us. I mean, we see this all the time. And, when I used to work in physical therapy, 2 people had the same surgery, really hardcore surgery, like a knee replacement or something. One person's going to do really good, and the other sometimes does terrible. Or maybe they go back to the hospital because they just can't their mental state is so weak, and they
Mhm.
just can't get through it. It really affects outcomes,
Yeah.
you know. But if we've never practiced that, we don't have that resilience built up.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that when you choose to put yourself in a hard situation, or maybe you've go back to the example, maybe you've lost somebody in your life, and then it's happened. Maybe that's happened multiple times to you. I firmly believe that your body and your mind recognizes that again,
Mhm.
and I think it also recognizes when you've done something that you've chosen to put yourself through, like something that's
Mhm.
difficult and challenging, physically or mentally, both. Like your body recognizes that
Yeah.
how you felt in those moments and how you came about it, and there's been a lot of times where, I've recognized there's been moments of overwhelming anxiety and um, just like even some like sense of depression in my life where I'm like, I know what this feels like because I've been through it. And even
Yeah.
though it was something that I've chosen to put myself through, these moments where I'm not necessarily, I don't want this to happen, I'm not choosing for this to happen. My body and my mind still recognize we've been here before, Logan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important. And I honestly, like a lot of times when I ask people, like, what's the hardest thing you've been through? Or what's the hardest thing you've ever done? If they don't have like a really good answer, I'm just like, man, you need to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And that's not like a knock on them. That's just like lack of. I don't want to say I don't trust you, but like if you haven't been through anything challenging, like blessings to you,
Yeah.
because it is it's hard. And if you've never put yourself through something difficult or like chosen to do something difficult, um, I highly encourage you to because it's gonna rock you, especially when you get older. Like if you've
Yeah.
been through trauma when you're younger, I think as you get older, it definitely shapes you. But if you're in your 20s or older and you've never truly had something like traumatic or really, really hard happen to you in your life, I suggest putting yourself in something that's challenging physically
Yeah.
because it's gonna
It's gonna happen
the
at some
physical
point.
aspects and the mental aspects are going to coincide, and they're gonna both work their magic on you in
Yeah.
the worst ways. And it's going to help you. It's going to kind of like when you're younger and you go to something that's challenging that shapes you as you get older. When you choose to do something when you're older that's challenging, that's going to shape you as your life goes on.
Yeah. Sergio, what are we doing tomorrow? You guys got me all hyped up.
Well, I'm off tomorrow.
Oh, dang it. Oh, me and Sergio are going to go on an adventure tomorrow now. Maybe traverse a river again or something.
Yeah.
We got to do something intense now.
Yeah, that's one thing that I love about this about Move Well is like whenever we go on road trips, it's just like an unwritten rule, an unspoken thing that we all just pack a pair of
Kind of an adventure
adventure
bag.
clothing, yeah, or adventure bag. Like so Kevin and Wade and I have like gone on a little trail run, and then last minute we had Kevin and Wade had like a really big meeting. This was probably a year ago,
Yeah.
and it was probably 40 degrees outside.
Yeah.
We went on a little trail run, and we were like, should we jump in the river? Should we jump in the river right now? So then we all stripped down to our shorts, jumped in the river, got in our vehicles, sped back to the office. Kevin and Wade are in business up top, and then a cold plunge on the bottom of Tyre on their Zoom call. And then what did you and Sergio do? Multiple things.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what was the swim across?
Yeah,
rivers?
we were coming back from. I didn't tell Sergio what we were doing. I don't think. My unwritten rule is I never tell anybody what I got planned. I just tell them what to bring. And so we parked on one side of the river, swam across, got up there, ran on it, and then got on a trail, and then ran on a trail, and then came back and then swam across the river. And it was awesome. I've done that before on my own too, that same trip. And I want to do that again, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
That's we need to do that soon.
Yeah.
And we need to go. Yeah. We need to make a day of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're due for some celebration.
And if anybody wants to join us, I'm announcing this publicly. We're going to start doing some crazy adventures for the public to join us.
Yeah.
So
I was holding my breath there. Did you see me, Sergio? I was like, oh no, what is he?
If anybody wants to, we will have some things coming up in 2024. I'm announcing it publicly on this live stream that nobody's watching right now.
Hey,
and telling you we're going to have some stuff coming up. And so if you are looking for a challenge, you're looking for something, or you're just interested in what the heck we're talking about, stay tuned because we're going to have some opportunities for you.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
And we'll wrap it up here. It's a long day for us. Kevin's had a busy day. Me and Sergio have been going at it, getting this set up today, but I just encourage you all to follow us online and Move Well. Like Kevin said, we're doing a lot of things in the community, and part of it is just building a fun and engaging social media following, or just putting some fun and engaging content out there that is who we are. I think for a lot of time, like just businesses in general, and speaking from our perspective too, it's easy to hold back who you are and the things you're up to because you feel maybe weird about it. But we're, like Kevin said, we're going to 2024. We're dying to ourselves. We're going in completely open and raw of who we are as a company, as a brand, the things we enjoy and we like to talk about. So this is the start of Death to New Life for Move Well. Death to New Life for Move Well.
We'll end with that.
But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. So thanks for tuning in. Our first stream, first of many to come. And
They're all live streamed from now on, right?
Yeah, they'll all be live streamed from now on YouTube. So if you're watching this,
I'm thinking about adding a second podcast too. Me and Wade.
Yeah. So Kevin
Cleopas Project
is always throwing something on here. So just
that might
stay
be coming
tuned.
too. Another one.
Follow us on social.
It'll have a whole theme to it and everything.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a ton of stuff coming from the YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on the live stream, like this video, but subscribe to the channel so you get notified whenever we put out new stuff.
Lots more coming.
A lot more. And if you're listening on whatever podcast platform you listen to, thanks for tuning in. Wraps up another episode of Adapt and Achieve. See you next time.